Hey students, it's really a special occasion to have Mr. Blaylock come here and speak to us. He is our district attorney. I'm going to let him just tell you all about the position and anything else he wants to talk about today.
Sounds good.
So welcome you to Cullman High School.
Great. Thank you very much. Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. Y'all excited to be in your new building? This is impressive. First time I've ever been here. Y'all ought to be proud of it. Take care of it, because there's a lot of students who don't get this opportunity. Coach Drake was telling me a little bit about this class, and then walking over here, Peyton was telling me a little bit about it. It's is the title Law and Society? Is
Yes.
that what it is?
Yes, sir.
So, tell me, do y'all cover different areas of the law, like criminal law and civil law and all like that? Now, have y'all already gone through criminal law? You've already touched on it. Well, as district attorney, that's what we do. We're in the criminal law side of it. And has any of your parents ever served on a jury that you know of? Okay. Were they on a 12-man jury? Do you know?
No, I know.
Okay. Well, as district attorney, some states call them state's attorney. We're employed by the state of Alabama. Even though I live in Cullman County, work in Cullman County, I'm employed by the state of Alabama. And a district attorney is charged with the duties of enforcing the criminal laws of the state of Alabama. And there's a certain code section that sets out 99% of the criminal laws in the state of Alabama, and that's what the district attorney is charged with enforcing. Now, in that, there are different degrees of crimes. There is misdemeanors, which is any crime that you stand to be sentenced to a year or less in prison is a misdemeanor. And then you have felony offenses, which, of course, anything that's over a year that you're subject to be sentenced to makes it a felony offense. So we prosecute misdemeanors, we prosecute felonies, we prosecute traffic cases. Anybody gotten a traffic citation? Gone to court? I'm not counting the teachers. So anyway, we prosecute all that. All that comes across the district attorney's desk prior to it even going in front of the judge. So we handle a tremendous caseload, but that's something that we enjoy doing. Now, I don't enjoy trying to put somebody in jail. I don't mean that, but there's a lot of times that we get to help folks too, so that's good. I don't know. We also not only prosecute criminal cases, but in the district attorney's office, we have 2 or 3 different departments. One is our child support. When single parents have children and the non-custodial parent has been ordered to pay child support and is not paying, we will help that custodial parent collect their child support. So that's been a real benefit to the community, I think, because there's so many times that typically it's the mother has children and struggling and doesn't get any child support or can't get him to pay, and so we'll help them. Just this year, just since January, we've collected over $3.2 million for custodial parents for child support. In any other time, they probably couldn't afford to hire an attorney and take the non-custodial parent to court. So that's one area that the district attorney does. Another area is our court cost recovery. And I won't bore y'all with a lot of facts and figures, but when a court, if you're before the judge and says, okay, you're guilty, I'm gonna fine you $200 and you gotta pay all the court costs. Well, 10 years ago, if you walked out the courtroom and never looked back and never paid, the state of Alabama didn't even contact you. You know, you didn't have to pay it. So the state started looking at all these millions of dollars that they were owed in fines and court costs, and they charged the DA with collecting that for the state. So we have a court cost recovery that in 90 days, if that's not paid into the court, it's turned over to us and we collect it for the state. And if you don't pay it, we can put you in jail. So that's a pretty big incentive. So we've got worthless check unit. In our unit, in our office, if a merchant or an individual accepts a check and that check comes back no good or NSF, non-sufficient funds, they can bring it to the DA's office and we'll help them collect that. I think we've collected a little over $100,000 so far for folks that bring in bad checks, and we help collect it for them. So most everything that you hear and think of as a district attorney or a prosecutor is, y'all have probably seen some of the shows on TV, the law shows that they're trying cases in court, and that's a lion's share of what we do, but we do a whole lot more than that. It's something new every day. I'm very, very fortunate because I get to go to work and I do something that I enjoy. So when you enjoy it, it's not work. And then really, that's the way I think about it. I'm very fortunate to be able to be district attorney here because it's I have a lot of good people that I work with in our office. Martha Williams is a circuit judge now. She was an assistant DA for me. Lisa McSwain was my victim service officer. She's the circuit clerk now. And then Matt Gentry is just run and been elected as sheriff, and he was my investigator. So I just tell you that to tell you the kind of quality of people that we have in the district attorney's office. And, I didn't know they were so politically inclined, but other than that, they're good people. So I'm proud of that. How do you get into the area of the law? Probably everybody knows, but I'll go over a little bit. In school, I guess if you want to be a doctor, you take pre-med, and they've got it pretty much lined out, the courses you need to take, from biology to chemistry to organic to whatever else. Now, if you're interested in law school, there is certain areas that you can take in college and that would help you prepare, but also people that go to law school have a varied background. It's not as narrow as maybe.
Excuse the interruption. Any freshmen who did not have a picture made for the yearbook back in October, please report to the new gym at this time. Any freshman who was absent on the original picture date, please report to the new gym at this time. Thank you.
We don't have any freshmen. In order to get accepted to law school, it's not as limited. I mean, you can, of course, the first thing you think of is maybe your major would be political science. That's always a big course that a lot of pre-law students get into. I majored in history, so that's another area that would prepare you for law school, in that in law school there's a tremendous amount of reading. There is more than you ever imagine. In whatever class you have here that you go, oh God, I got to read a chapter tonight, that pales into comparison to what, if anybody's interested in going to law school. Now, I don't say that to scare you. It's doable because, heck, if it wasn't, I'd have never been able to get through it. But there's a lot of them. So history, you typically read a lot. You remember a lot of things that happened in the past, and that's a lot of law school. You learn cases. You learn cases that set precedent. There's statutes or laws that we go by, but there's also case law that we go by. So, you're constantly researching, which would help as far as if you had history, just in the way that you prepare for class and able to read some more. But you can major in art or anything and take the MCAT, and if you qualify, you can certainly, there's a lot of law schools around, and we always need good lawyers. Now, there's plenty of lawyers, but we always need good ones. And if somebody is of a notion to look at the field of law, I encourage you to do that. But I encourage you to do your very best to, don't just be a lawyer. I mean, be a good one. Take pride in it, and give back to the community. And that's one of the best things that you could do, is be a good citizen, and that goes along with being a good attorney. But I touch on that as far as, I don't know if anybody here, I mean, I know it's law and society class, but I don't know, is everybody got an interest in going to law school, or somebody's thought about it, or did somebody just hear this is an easy class and so y'all signed up? Anybody want to go to law school? All right. Peyton, I know why you do.
Yeah.
Now, I was talking to Peyton's father yesterday. He's a good attorney. He's real good. I enjoy working with Zeb. He knows what he's doing. He's there fighting for his client all the way, and you've got to respect that. And that's what we need more of. But just trying to think if there's, is there anything else that y'all want to hear, touch on? Coach, is there something you want me to cover?
Well, let's open it up. Does anybody have any questions? I have a lot, but.
Yes, sir.
What area of the state are you responsible for?
Excuse me?
What area of the state are you responsible for?
Okay, good question. I am the district attorney for the 32nd Judicial Circuit. Now, there are 41 judicial circuits in the state of Alabama. Cullman is the 32nd. Now, long time ago, when they drew up the circuit lines, it was based on population. So the larger counties, Jefferson, Baldwin, Mobile, Madison, even Cullman, they were large enough to have their own circuit. So the only county that I'm responsible for is Cullman County. Now, you get to some of the more rural areas of the state, mainly northeast or the southern part of the state. There's several counties in a circuit. There's several with 3 counties in the circuit. There's even one with 5 counties. So there's, by law, there has to be a courthouse in every county, and that district attorney has to go to every county to prosecute cases. So I couldn't imagine having to travel to 5 different counties all the time, but I'm thankful that we just have one county to cover, but that's what we're responsible for, is just Cullman County. And we're responsible for just the criminal laws in Cullman County. I can be appointed by the Attorney General to try a case in another county or another jurisdiction, but my primary focus is on Cullman County. Good question. Yes, sir.
Do you have like a most memorable case?
I don't know, you know, there's several. There's several. The ones that stay with you the longest, I guess, are the child sex cases. You know, those are the hardest to try. Those are the hardest to read the facts and not carry it home with you at night. You know, you try to leave it at the office, but that's not possible. So those are the hardest by far for me. Now, most memorable, we tried 2 people for capital murder. The victim lived in Logan. Nobody's from the Logan area here, I guess, if y'all are going to the city school. But it was just 2 guys out riding around the roads, doing drugs. And one of the guys kind of knew this victim, said, hey, you know, I bet we can take his TV and radio and we can go pawn it and buy some more drugs. So they just walk up to his door. It's probably, he had already gone to bed. They woke him up. He was a single fellow, worked all his life at, I believe, Topray, Ray Howe or Topray, one of the 2. Hard worker, took care of his mother. His mother lived up the road, but he was her only source of support. And they knocked on his door. He came there to the door in his boxer shorts and t-shirt, and they just blew him away. Didn't even ask. They just shot and killed him. He laid on his floor. They took his TV, his radio, and you know, tried to pawn it. Nobody bought it, and we prosecuted both of them. It was, you know, you can try them both together, but in reality, that gets a little complicated. So we split it up, tried one time, and the next one the next time. So it was kind of a long and drawn out process. But I guess memorable case, that kind of stuck with me too, because he hadn't done anything but the right thing all his life, and just 2 drug heads that taking up space, just come in there and blow him away. He never had a chance. Yes, ma'am.
How much does a district attorney make annually?
That's set by statute that says, you're saying how much does a district attorney make?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It used to be set on when you were first district attorney, it'd be one amount. If you've been in there a long time, it'd be another. But probably about 8 years ago, legislators said it, that it's $1,000 less than circuit court judge. That's what the statute says. Now, that $1,000 less right now is, I think, $148,000 is what the district attorneys make. Now, if you are in Jefferson County, if you are in Mobile or Baldwin, there's exceptions. They make even more because of the size that they are. But everybody else across the state, it's right at between $148,000 and $149,000 a year.
Teachers, please excuse the interruption. Any 10th grader who did not have their picture taken in October, please report to the new gym at this time. Any 10th grader who has not yet had their picture taken for the yearbook, please report to the new gym at this time. Thank you.
He's not a 10th grader, but he's supposed to go get it. He's a senior. They got this makeup picture day. I know y'all don't want to leave, but they'll be calling for y'all.
Yes, ma'am.
What are some of the different jobs you've had before?
Oh, yeah. Okay, when I graduated from the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, I was a stockbroker. I took my Series 7 license, and I was a stockbroker for, I guess, about 10 years. I always wanted to go to law school, but I talked to my parents and I just wanted to take off, tired of going to school. So got a job on a farm, a horse farm, for a year. And then I thought, well, stockbroker sounds pretty good, because I dabbled in that a little bit. So I was that for 10 years, and it was fun. When it's good, it's real good. You make a lot of money, used to. But when it's bad, you start big. So I never was disciplined enough to save enough when it was real good. And so I hit the highs and hit the lows too. So I said, got to be something better than this. So that's when I went back, and then I went to law school, graduated, and have worked at Jackson and Williams here in Cullman, Roy Williams and Billy Jackson. Worked for them for 4 years, and then Lynn Brooks, who was the district attorney at the time, hired me as an assistant district attorney, and he finished out his term and did not run for re-election, and that's when I ran for the open seat of the DA's office. And I am trying to think, I guess I'm finishing up the district attorney is elected for a 6-year term, okay? And I'm in my second term, and I am finishing my 4th year of my second term. My 5th year will start in January. So, the biggest job I had before I had this was I was a stockbroker. Traded financial futures, different commodities, and stocks. Yes.
Inspires you to be a district attorney like everyone?
Of trying to do the right thing, of trying to help people that, I'm not going to say that can't help themselves, but most of the time, the victims that come to us, it's some of the worst times of their life. They're not used to the court system. They're not, and their house has been burglarized or worse. They've been violated personally, or they've had a member of their family that's been killed or something. And to try to help them and seek justice. That's our main goal that we're charged with, is to seek justice, and maybe by obtaining justice, we help these families a little bit cope with what they have to go through. That's the biggest thing for me. That's the satisfaction you get, is at the end of the day that maybe you've helped somebody somewhere, and you generally have to. You generally have to have that feeling to keep going, because now you're not going to get rich working for the government, okay? That's just the way it is. So you've got to be able to draw your satisfaction from something other than all the money you make, okay? So that's my biggest satisfaction, is helping folks, and hopefully making the community safer by the people that need to be in prison. I do everything I can to try to put them in prison and keep them in prison.
Have you ever felt like you've wrongly accused someone of something?
No, ma'am. No, I've never felt. Now, there's some people that turn out to be not guilty, okay? But, and this is a good question, to arrest a person, the investigator or the deputy or the police officer has to have what we call probable cause, okay? There's reasonable suspicion, which is the least amount of evidence you have to have. Then above that, kind of like a pyramid if you think about it, reasonable suspicion. If you're walking down the street at night, any officer for any reason can stop and ask you your name You know, and you've got to give them identifying information. They have every right to do that. Now, if you're in a rough part of town, there's been a lot of drug activity around this corner, and they happen to see you, they can stop and ask you different things. And if your eyes are blurry and you can't talk, he's got reasonable suspicion that you might be under the influence of something. So it goes farther. The reasonable suspicion is the least amount of evidence that you need. On top of that is probable cause. That's a little more evidence that you have to have. But to arrest a person, all you have to have is probable cause. And probable cause is kind of a broad term, but the best I can explain it is the crime that you're saying was committed was probably committed, and the person that you're saying committed that crime probably did. Now, that's pretty broad, okay? Now, you can't go to prison on that proof, okay? But that's enough to get you arrested. Then after that, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, that's what we have to prove when we go to court. When we try a case in front of 12 people, we got to prove, and they've got to be satisfied, all 12 of them, that that person did it, and it's beyond a reasonable doubt that they did it. So, if you say, you know, have I ever felt like that I've accused an innocent person? Was that your question?
No, it was more of like guilty or not guilty.
Well, and there are times when you may have probable cause, but it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, as district attorney, we always try to think about what we have to prove in court. You know, it does me no good if they're out there arresting on probable cause if we can't get anything any farther, okay? Because they'd all be dismissed. So, what we look at is if we can prove this case, the different elements of the crime, by statute, there's certain things that you have to prove to be guilty of that, okay? So we've got to look and make sure that we think that we can prove every element, and then that way we can meet the burden of beyond a reasonable doubt. But now there are times when you've got probable cause, but there's no way to get beyond a reasonable doubt. We got witness problems, okay? At first, a witness comes up and says, yeah, I saw it, you know, he did this to her, and I was there, and I know about, okay, that's fine. So then she's got bruises or marks on her, so we arrest somebody on probable cause, or have the person arrested on probable cause. Well, guess what? When we get ready for trial, we can't find that witness, okay? She doesn't want to testify because, number one, they've either gotten back together, or he's out of her life and she doesn't want to have to relive it. So all of a sudden, we got a big problem when we go to trial. We don't have an eyewitness, and the victim doesn't even want to testify. Okay, so there's no way of going forward with the case. And I just use that as an example. You know, there's other things besides domestic violence that we may have problems with, but that's something that we run into that's not uncommon. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
What do you have to do to be a judge? Do you have to go back to school or?
To be a judge?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Yes.
No, you've got to have a law degree. That's it in the state of Alabama. Now, there has been some movement that hadn't gotten too far down in the legislature of requiring that there be so many years of experience practicing law before you can run for judge, but that has never passed. It's if you have a law degree and you live in the jurisdiction for which you're running, then for the last 12 months, then you can run for judge. Sure can.
Any other questions? So tell us about how a case gets into trial You know,
Okay.
do you decide personally, or do you have to have
Well,
somebody, else involved?
good question. There's a couple of different ways a case gets to court. One is if you have a police officer or you have a deputy, and they see probable cause that a crime's been committed, they can arrest you on the spot on a probable cause arrest. They can bring you in, you're booked into the jail, and by law, you have to have a hearing within 48 hours, what's called a probable cause hearing. You've got to go before a magistrate or a judge, and that person that arrested you has to set out the reasons they arrested you. Does he or she have probable cause to arrest you? And if the judge or magistrate said, yes, there's probable cause, then you'll either continue to be held, or, there's a bond set for you. And if you make that bond, then you can be out if you promise to show up for court. Now, that's one way that it gets in the court system. The next way is if law enforcement officer or investigator has been investigating a case and thinks there's probable cause, they bring it to the district attorney. And then we look at it and see if there is probable cause that who they're saying did it, probably did it. And then we can issue a warrant for that person's arrest. So you have a warrantless arrest or arrest with a warrant. The warrantless is they have probable cause to believe you did something, they arrest you on the spot. A warrant is they take it to the district attorney says, yes, there's probable cause and there's a warrant issued. Either way, then it gets into the court system. You're given a bond amount, and if you make it, you're out if you promise to come back to court. Now, if we don't want you out, we've got to argue that in a hearing to the judge on why you don't need to be loose. You can be a danger to the community or yourself. There can be a risk of flight. If we can show that you don't have any family, you hadn't been in the community long, you don't own any property here, you rent your house, and you've always lived in California and have nothing to keep you here, there might be a good chance as soon as you get out, you may go back to California. So we'll argue that to keep you in jail until your court date. But those are the two ways it gets into court. Now, after that, after your 48-hour hearing, it's set in district court. And the judge will arraign you, meaning they'll call you up, tell you what you've been charged with, and if you cannot afford an attorney, they'll appoint you a public defender. And then they'll give you a trial date. So you get with your attorney. If you can settle the case, you will. If you want a trial, you come back on trial day. So then if we can't get it settled, then the district attorney takes that case to a grand jury. By law, the only way that you can get to circuit court is through a grand jury indictment. And you can waive the grand jury indictment, but that's a group of 18 people. And we have a grand jury 4 times a year. And all the cases that we need to present, we'll present them all since the last grand jury. Now, they listen to the evidence, and their burden of proof is probable cause also. So out of those 18 people, we have to have at least 12 to say, yeah, I believe that guy did it, and they issue an indictment. So after you're indicted, same thing in circuit court, you're arraigned, told what you've been charged with, they'll appoint you an attorney, and then we'll have a trial. So that's kind of how the cases flow. You can be arrested on a warrant, or you can be arrested without a warrant, but then the officer has 48 hours to come get that warrant and have a hearing. Yes, sir.
You know, a lot of people skip out on like, if it was just a small arrest, an officer, like, had just so happened he saw someone in a bad neighborhood, like you said, and he arrested them, do y'all have a lot of people skip out on the
Not a lot. It happens. It's not unusual. But now what happens is when that name is called on a docket and they don't show up, okay, then the district attorney enters what's called a FTA, failure to appear. They have not appeared in court, okay? The judge issues a bench warrant, meaning from the bench, he issues a warrant for your arrest because you didn't show up to court. That FTA is entered on the National Crime Information.
Interruption. Any junior who has not yet had a picture taken for the yearbook, please report to the new gym at this time. Any junior who has not yet had a picture taken for the yearbook, please come to the new gym. Thank you.
So after that person fails to appear in court, there's a warrant issued. That warrant is put in a computer system, NCIC, the National Computer Information Computer, I don't know what the last C stands for, but anyway. So that only goes, I mean, not only statewide, it goes to all 48 states, the lower 48. So you can be stopped again in Minnesota or California, and if you've got this FTA, it comes up on the computer, they will hold you until we go get you, okay? So it's not uncommon for people not to show up. There's times when they don't. They don't think it's that big a deal or something, but then after a while, it becomes a pretty big deal for them. Yes, sir.
Is there any way that the FTA can be dismissed, or what would be the process of getting rid of that?
Sure. Number one, the only person that can dismiss that FTA is the judge. So if it's not uncommon either. If a family member finds out that, oh my goodness, my son's got an FTA, he's in North Carolina on a construction crew and didn't come. If the judge wants to talk to a family member and they explain to him why he didn't show it, the judge will withdraw that FTA and give him a new court date and give him another chance, give him or her another chance. But they better come the second time. But that's the only way that you can clear it up is either number one, turn yourself in if you know that there's an FTA for you, if you haven't been arrested yet. Or you can have a family member or a friend explain to the judge why you didn't come. And they may withdraw that and send it.
So I've seen a lot of movies where it's like this man, I just want to know this is fact or fiction. There's often times when this criminal, he's on the loose for maybe like 20 years, 20 plus years maybe, and say a bigger case presents itself. And like the attorneys or the officers kind of know this man is not going to crack this case. And there's often this time where it's like, you help me become an undercover cop kind of, and I will like clear your criminal record. Is that legal or illegal? Is that fact or fiction?
Well, there's a little bit of truth to that, okay? Now, if law enforcement or the district attorney or U.S. attorney thinks that this guy that they have a charge on or a warrant on can help them on a much bigger case, they certainly can enter an agreement with that defendant. Say, hey, you help me, and the DA can dismiss the charges, or the U.S. attorney can dismiss the charges on somebody if they've given enough information, enough help. Or you can ask the judge for leniency in a sentencing, meaning it's sentencing of this defendant that helped you. Say, judge, he helped on another case. You know, we've never been able to prosecute it, but for the information we got from this fella, and he's a lot of help. And the judge typically will go along with our recommendation on that. So, yes, I mean, if they help, and help a lot, it's not uncommon for us to give them a better deal. But now, if somebody's charged with possession of marijuana, and this guy says, well, I know another guy that, you know, has got some, that's not big enough, okay? I mean, but if this guy with marijuana says, hey, I can tell you when my supplier's getting it, it's coming out of Texas, and they, you know, they're pushing 100 pounds a week, and I can tell you they get it every Thursday night, then, yeah, we'll work with it.
It's about 5 after 9. Just want to be conscientious of your time, but and we'll wrap this up in the next few minutes. One thing I do want to understand, that you are an elected official,
Yes.
and just talk about that, and that I think additional pressure, stress, and responsibility, being an elected official and serving, you're really serving a whole community.
Well, and that's true. It is an elected position. And if you want to run for district attorney or judge, any number of offices, you have to declare whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. Okay. Now, there are some things that I think are kind of silly. I don't know why we need a Democrat or Republican coroner. You know, I mean, they go out and the guy's dead, it's dead, dead. You know, you don't have to be Republican or Democrat to do that. But anyway, it is. Once you declare if you're Republican or Democrat, you'll run in a primary. Okay, and there may be other Republicans running against you. There may be other Democrats. And then after that, if you're fortunate enough to get through the primary, then it goes to the general election. And if you're a Republican and you've got a Democratic opponent, like we just had Tuesday, the general election, it is a big responsibility. You are responsible to the citizens. I'm responsible to the citizens of Cullman County. That's who I work for. Now, it looks real good to on TV, trying cases in front of a jury and all like that, and that's a big part of why people get into it. But at the end of the day, we're a service organization. We serve the people of Cullman, and that is our number one priority other than to seek justice. We have to answer to the people of Cullman. And in doing that, that's a big responsibility. Now, you can't make everybody happy all the time, because we have people that come in and says, well, my son really didn't mean to do that. You know, he just got in with a bad crowd. But then we look at his history, and he's got a history of making bad decisions. We got to do something at some time. Well, that mother and the whole family is going to hate you and talk bad about you, but you've got to get a thick skin and not worry about that as long as you're doing the right thing. But it is big. It's a big responsibility. You have a lot of people depending on you, you know. But you've got to be willing to take that on your shoulders also. Not only the victim or the victim's family are looking at you to make sure you put this guy in prison because they did something to me or my family, or killed my daughter, or raped my daughter, or whatever. So the only person that can get them help is the district attorney. So it is a big responsibility. But of course, you have the responsibility of your staff. You know, we've got 14 people in our office that depend on you and that income for living. So that's big too. The state of Alabama is going to have another $250 million budget deficit for 2016, and that's going to affect us. They're not going to give the DAs as much money. We are, and let me talk just a little bit about funding. We got time?
Yes.
All right. The district attorney's office is one of the very few agencies, state agencies that I know of that is not 100% funded by the state. Now, there may be some others, but we get about 34% of our operating budget from the state of Alabama. We've got to make up the other, what is that, 66%? Math wasn't my strong point. So, okay. So how do we do that? And that means we're in business to make money. We got to. Because the state doesn't give us it. So we make money through, we contract with DHR for the child support that I was telling you about. For court cost recovery, there's a statutory amount that we receive for collecting that money owed to the state. So on worthless checks that we collect, the bad checks for merchants or individuals, there's a statutory amount that we get for collecting these checks for individuals. That's how we make up the other. So we were probably, 3 years ago, we were given, our budget from the state was about $600,000. Our, you know, and that made up about 50% of our budget. Okay. Well, now today we get about $220,000 just in 3 years. So all of a sudden they've cut us over $300,000, almost $400,000 in just a little over 3 years. Well, the only way we can make that work is we got to fire people. That's the only way we can make it. Okay. So you got a lot of people on your staff looking at you for a living, and then you got to tell them, well, you know, we're not getting as much money from the state, so we don't have room for it. Now, fortunately, I have not had to fire a soul because, like I said, the assistant district attorney was elected judge, so I didn't fill her spot. The victim service officer was elected circuit clerk. I didn't fill her spot. My investigator was just elected sheriff. I'm not going to fill his spot. I had a part-time victim service officer, and he retired, and I didn't fill his spot. Okay? So, fortunately for our office, I hadn't had to fire anybody, and that's the hardest thing in the world to do if you're a boss, because so many people depend on you. Their family depends on you. And it's tough. It's a big responsibility. But if you run for this office, that's what you take on.
In the same respect of that, it doesn't allow you to create any new jobs because they've cut you. Then you've, in effect, our state has eliminated jobs.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a sad thing, but you don't have to fire anybody there, but then that job goes away.
Sure does.
So,
and we have, in the last 5 years, our caseload is over triple. Okay, so we've got 3.5 less people in the office, and we're dealing with triple the cases we did 5 years ago. Now, it sounds like I'm crying. I'm not. I'm just telling you that, and we're not the only ones. Anybody that works for the state, they're in the same boat. But it's hard. But it's fun too. You know, we got a good group, like I said. They don't look at the clock when they start or when they finish. They just go home when they've got their work done. And that's good. Any more questions? I got a little token for y'all. Now, this won't get you out of jail. It won't even get you a cup of coffee. But it will prove that the DA came to talk to you. If you pass those down. Is that four? All right, if anybody has anything, or if I can help y'all in any way, you've got any concerns or questions, or I hope you don't have something in court going on, but if you do, we're on the second floor of the Cullman County Courthouse.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.